Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a little while since I've done a makeup tutorial video because I was kind of doing the alien looks. So I'm going to tell you a little bit briefly about that. So what happened initially is when I was younger, I used to see a lot of drag makeup, and drag makeup to me, and hopefully people don't take this offensively because, God forbid, everybody's offended now. But I just feel like drag makeup and like the gender bending thing, like that was cute for a while, and like it had its time and it had like a whole moment and everything. But like everybody wants to do it now, and I feel like it's just overly done. And it had a shock value purpose back in the day. But now that gender is becoming this like imaginary thing for some reason, all of a sudden it's kind of lost its shock value, and honestly I think drag's kind of tacky now. Plus they're all wanting to go and do it in front of children for some reason. I don't understand that either. Drag story hour, like who thought of that? Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Let's get people the clowns of our community, let's get them, the ones who talk about dicks and talk about enemas and all this shit, like sexual shit all the time, and are pigs. Let's just give them a place to talk to children, because for some reason that seems like a good idea. Anyway, I digress. So with that, I noticed there was a club kids scene, and the club kids, they were very it wasn't gender bending, it was more so like androgynous alien type costumes, or like Halloween-esque costumes. A couple of artists that I follow that you guys can look at are Ryan Burke. He's a club kid, an artist in New York City, as well as Hungry, and she's really good too. But other than that, so it's not drag, it's more so like Halloween makeup kind of. But I don't know, I'd just rather do something like that than do what everybody else is doing. But that comes in that's like a lot of aspects of my life, honestly, because I'm gay, I'm conservative, make America great again, but I also have tattoos and piercings. So I'm quite the contradiction, but that's me. So it doesn't have to make sense to everyone else. As long as it makes sense to me, that's all that really matters. And I'll briefly touch on last weekend, Easter. I was really, really happy that my dad invited me to church. So we got to go to church in the morning on Easter Sunday. And then we spent some quality time with family, which was nice. And yeah, that was pretty much it. I hope all you guys had a great Easter. And yeah, so there's that. Okay. I'm going to try to focus on maybe creating a Egyptian makeup look, as well as, talking about the history of ancient Egypt and some things that may culturally, to us culturally, be a little weird and not make too much sense, and also culturally things that we still utilize today, some things that we still utilize today. So first, we're gonna, obviously, because this is a makeup channel, so first of all we're going to start with ancient Egyptian makeup. There's 3 reasons why ancient Egyptians wore makeup, and first one is for cosmetic reasons, obviously to bring out natural, beautiful qualities about them. Also, they were huge believers of the afterlife, so they wanted to make sure that they looked beautiful and for their judgment day. So it was a huge component of their culture was makeup. And it wasn't just females who wore makeup, males wore makeup too. So culturally, or not, yeah, kind of, I would say culturally now, it's normal for men to wear makeup, or more normalized for men to wear makeup. But back then, men and women both wore makeup, and it wasn't feminine for men to wear makeup. So first of all, it was cosmetic reasons, and secondly, it was for medicinal reasons, because they believed that that it was what they were using, the materials that they were using were helping them with ailments or with protection. So, but that's also linked to spiritually, and that's another reason why they wore makeup. So, like for instance, they had the almond shape around the eyes. They used what they call kohl, which was malachite and galena. That's what they called it. When they combined that together, it was called kohl. And they just put it around the eyes to create that almond or cat shape or cat-like shape. The reason why they did that was because they did it because it represents Horus, who was the god of kingship, the god of protection, and the god of healing. So they felt that if they wore or emulated the god to the best of their abilities, that they would acquire protection, healing capabilities, and stuff like that. So that's pretty interesting to note. Also, okay, so the three different types of makeup they primarily used was, again, the kohl, the malachite. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but malachite and the galena. They mixed into make kohl, and then they put it around the eyes. Then they also did a lip stain, and they did a cheek stain. The lip stain and the cheek stain, what they used, was iodine, bromine, mannanite, and focused algin, were unfortunately toxic when ingested in high quantities. So unfortunately, the more that they used the makeup, it was actually quite toxic for them. But it was used for a lip stain and cheek stains. And the most common colors for lips were red, orange, magenta, and like a black blue, which is interesting. Yeah, so there's that. And doing our makeup, and we'll continue to talk about ancient Egypt. So I wasn't aware of this either, but did you know that Cleopatra was born or was around closer to when the iPhone was created than when the first pyramids were created? I think that's pretty cool, honestly. Okay, so we're gonna use, obviously this isn't a kohl, but we're gonna use a eyeliner, and we're gonna go inside to create that almond shape in our eye. But I want us to share is that that cold stuff that they used to create the almond eye shape, they also rubbed it on the statues of the gods that they worshipped as well, which I thought was pretty interesting. But look at this eye compared to this eye. You see how it brings out? It's like a cat eye, an almond eye. It actually looks nice. Okay, so so here's some other fun facts that you should know about ancient Egypt. Did you know that the ancient Egyptians were one of the earliest civilizations to create a peace treaty? Which I thought that's pretty cool. I mean, and also, did you know that the reason what caused the decline of ancient Egypt was a centuries-long drought, economic crisis, and opportunistic foreign invaders? So, yeah, those three things contributed to their deaths, or not to their deaths, to the decline of power in ancient Egypt. Okay. So we're just filling in our waterline with this eyeliner. Okay. Also, in ancient Egypt, I guess they had a really bad problem with lice. Like it wasn't just, oh, someone has lice, that's it. No. I guess everybody shaved like they shaved their heads and they shaved really anywhere they could shave with a knife. So, yeah. And the reason for that was because if they didn't, they would have lice infestations. And I guess those got pretty bad. So what they did is a lot of the women, especially the higher class women, had wigs made. And even men had beard wigs made. Um, and then once they got infested with lice, then they threw them away. Um, so yeah, so there's that. And then yeah, so and then I'm just extending the right on the corners to make the almond shape really come out. Okay, so we got that, we got that. All right. So I guess also too, ancient Egyptians were really like board games too. So like even King Tut, I guess, was known when they found his burial grounds. He was buried with board games, and there's Mihen, Dogs and Jackals, and Senet. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation on those, but Senet in particular dates back to the 3500 BC and was played on a long board painted with 30 squares. I guess the process in which you play the game, many have debated the different ways to play it. There isn't a they haven't really um, found a definitive answer on that yet. So people have their own opinion on how the game was played, but this was the board. It was 30 pieces or 30 squares on a painted board. So, but they were really big into that, I guess. Even Queen Nefertiti, there was paintings depicting her playing the Senate game. Um, yeah, so that's pretty interesting. All right, so we got the eyes done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a little brush and we're just gonna blend this black out so it goes. And then just blend it out, blend it out, blend it out. Okay, so there's that, there's that. All right. And I know this may be hard to believe too, but also, I guess women had rights too. So they were pretty ahead of their time when it came to that as well. They even though they were seen as inferior to men, um, even though they were seen as inferior to men, they enjoyed a great deal of legal and financial independence. They were able to buy and sell properties. They were able to serve on juries, make wills, and even legal contracts. They received equal pay. Rare, but it was rare for them to work outside the home. The divorce, they were able to divorce. They were able to remarry, and they could even negotiate pre-nuptial agreements. The workers could organize labor strikes. So that's a huge misconception when it comes to ancient Egypt as well. Many people are under the impression that in ancient Egypt, slaves were the ones to build the pyramids. That's not true. These were all paid workers, and so that whole slave thing is not true. And then also another, I know I'm all over the place with a lot of this information, but I just find it so fascinating. For instance, like King Tut. Did you know that King Tut, when they found him, they did an X-ray on his body, and they found out that he was missing part of his chest wall and his heart. And I know from the teachings that I've read up on about how they mummify especially pharaohs, is they put all of their organs in canopic jars around the body, and because they need every part of the body in order to make a smooth transition to their next life. So for him to be missing that signifies that he may have died a pretty gruesome death or from a major injury. And there's even some people that make the, I guess, make the assumption that he may have been even attacked by a hippo while he was hunting. Just because there's a lot of imagery, I guess, in his throne room or his burial room that signified that he was a big hunter, or that he enjoyed hunting because he had a harpoon, throwing a harpoon, or a javelin, whatever you want to call it. So that's pretty interesting, and but evidence suggests that Egyptians hunted hippos for sport, and like I said, the statues found in his tomb depict him in the act of throwing a harpoon. If he enjoyed hunting this much, this may have led to his untimely death. So, and also I thought was a fun fact is Egyptians kept different types of animals as pets. They really, so for instance, they were particularly fond of and fond of cats, and they also, because it had the association of the goddess Bastet, Bastet. But the type of animals that they had were hawks, ibises, which is like kind of like a gazelle but different, dogs, lions, and baboons. And I guess they even use baboons like in dogs, like the guards and military use them, kind of like how we use dogs today, like canine units for drugs and all that type of stuff. But we also they also use baboons for dancing, like they taught them how to perform and how to dance. But I thought that was interesting. And some of the not too pleasant things that I found while researching ancient Egypt is women's form of birth control. Are you guys ready for this one? Let me put on some okay, so with the blush, it was a cheek stain, and normally what that comprised of is a material called red ochre. It sounds like Cardi, ochre, but red ochre, and they use that for a cheek stain. And red ochre is kind of like it's like a clay material. They sifted it with water out of pebbles and gravel, and then they dry it out, and then they apply it with bones and stuff like that. So I mean, they applied it liberally too. It wasn't just something where they're just like boop, boop, boop. And I can't imagine a bone being or being as effective as like a beauty blender or a brush. But if that's all you had back then, screw it, right? Also, so yeah, so I'm gonna put my cheek stain on, even though it's not a cheek stain, but we're just kind of doing the basic Egyptian look. Okay. So we got that. Okay, and then over here. Okay, so birth control, everyone. Let's talk about, or not, yeah, let's talk about birth control for women back in ancient Egypt, okay? So birth control was, you ready? Took uh, took me back a little. I was taken back a little bit by the form of birth control. So we're gonna start. So birth. I'll just get to it. Birth control was females shoving elephant or crocodile feces up inside them, mixed with honey, dates, and raisins and like flowers, I guess, like to make it so it didn't smell bad. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad they don't do that type of thing anymore, because that's definitely a form of birth control that would work every time. Just saying. So yeah. So then, yeah. So they use that. Yeah, lovely, right? And then they also, for, um, what was that? Oh, like as a pregnancy test, they had two. I think it was Bailey. It was some sort of, um, two different kinds of herbs, and they would pee on one, or they pee on both of them, and if it sprouted on one side, or if like the seeds sprouted on, I think it was then one seed group, then it'd be a male, but if it sprouted on the other seed group, it would be a female. And then if none of the seeds sprouted, the woman wouldn't be fertile. But I guess, and I mean, they did some studies on it, and it's not far off. I guess it's sort of effective when it comes to telling whether you're pregnant or not. But I just thought that was pretty interesting too. Also, another interesting fact is catcalling. Catcalling came from ancient Egypt. Initially, when the reason why catcalling happened was because there'd be men on the Nile on a ship, and on both sides of the Nile there'd be women viewing the people coming down the Nile, and they would yell to the females, and they would lift up their skirts or whatever they were wearing to reveal their genitalia, and that was their way of getting the females' attention. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. Also, this is pretty gross too. When the when pretty women, died, they, because you know how they were all about the afterlife. So, what happened was they put a lot of effort into dolling up people that were about to go in front of the gods, for judgment. So they wanted them to look as beautiful as possible for their afterlife. So, an issue that they were running into is with really pretty women that passed away. They would actually leave their bodies outside for a couple of days till it started to decompose, and then they would, continue with the burial. The reason why they did that is because there was a lot of Egyptians that were fornicating with the deceased, after, the person had passed, and, the Egyptians caught wind of this, and, that was their way of handling it, I guess, is just waiting for the, bodies to decompose a little bit, which is pretty gross. What else? What else? Trying to think. I know there's over 100. Okay, so now I'm gonna do. Well, I know there's over 100 pyramids that exist in the world, or in Egypt right now, and also, so I guess early on in Europe, what was going on was there was a lot of exploration at the time of Egypt, because it was big news when they started finding places that had, gold and all that type of stuff in it. So European explorers it was big for them to go overseas and go and hunt for these tombs. So I guess when that happened, they found a lot of mummies, and they would actually, Europeans would actually start having unwrapping parties. So everybody would sit around a mummy. They'd be delivered to somewhere in Europe, and then people would sit around and unwrap a mummy, and they would actually have parties that that was the main attraction of, which is pretty unusual as well. I mean, at the end of the day, these were people that are no longer alive, and they were using them for their own amusement. But also, it gets worse. I guess paper, real paper, was more expensive. Got more expensive than mummy wrapping did. So people started buying mummy wrappings over actual paper. So what was going on was, I mean, it wasn't the hugest issue until they started wrapping food up, especially things like meat, in this paper, because there was people have died in it. So people started to contract um, cholera from it, and that became a huge thing. So they finally figured out that that was the problem, and they discontinued that. But that's pretty creepy. So um, okay, so now we're gonna do the lip, and there's my red lip. So we got that. We got that. All right. All right. And also, I don't know if you guys are aware of this too, but in a lot of the royal family, what they did is they inbred. So they wanted to keep the bloodline pure, and they also wanted to not have to share their wealth out to other families. So that ended up becoming an issue as well. There was a lot of royal family members that were born with disabilities due to a lot of inbreeding. So that didn't work out in their benefit as well. And I guess the worst way that a Egyptian felt that they could be disposed of, like the worst way that they could die, or like the worst way that the worst thing that could ever happen to them is being burnt. Because if you burnt them, they no longer had the physical body here, which would mean that they had no vessel to move to the afterlife. So that was a huge um that was something they were extremely scared of, and it was perceived as one of the worst ways to go, or the worst thing that could happen after you were dead. That's what their belief system entailed. But yeah, so there's that. And I mean, I don't know what else to talk about. That's pretty much it. I know this was a really basic makeup look today. I know it wasn't anything special, but today I kind of just wanted to talk a little more than focusing on the makeup, just because I gotta learn to get better at this. I'm like, or and like I use a lot of words repetitively and too much. So I'm really trying to work on this, and this is part of the journey. So thank you for everyone that took the time to sit and watch my video. Again, I know the makeup look wasn't anything spectacular, but I hope you guys have a better understanding of some of the cultural aspects of ancient Egypt, and hopefully this small glimpse will make you want to go and do some research on your own. Just some of the research that I gathered was extremely interesting, and even now I think later on I'm gonna go and look up some more stuff, just because it was a massive civilization, and I'm truly intrigued by how long it lasted, and all the architecture that's still around, and the art, their belief systems. They really were and still are an incredible people. So, and hopefully one day I plan on going on vacation there to or not to ancient Egypt, to Egypt, and be able to see all this stuff for myself and feel what it must have been like for them so long ago. But again, thank you very much for watching my channel. I hope all of you have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.